So continuing on with the IRB application, for this one I'm going to talk about the methodology and procedures of collecting the data. You will be completing your methodology section. Once you have completed that, it'll be a lot easier for you to actually fill in this, just basically step by step of how you're going to complete your study. The briefer, the better for the IRB. The approximate dates of data collection will usually be around January-ish. You don't have to be accurate here, just say approximately January 15th through no later than April 15th, because you have to be able to have all the data processed and presented by the end of the semester. Number 17, you are going to describe step-by-step procedures for everything that the participants will experience while they're involved in your research. There's a nice little example here where it shows you how clean and specific it should be when you write it. This one here, participants will be notified of the opportunity to sign up for experiment time slots in various classes across campus by emailing blah blah blah. To sign up for the experimental sessions, an experimenter will meet a potential participant at the appointed time and place and go over the consent form with them. If a participant decides to participate, they will fill out a series of self-report questionnaires, including measures on self-esteem, competitiveness, and anxiety. After the participant has completed the measures, they will be thanked for their participation and dismissed. Short, sweet, to the point. I'll show you the one that we wrote. We passed the IRB with flying colors for our first go-around. We will be sending an email to social work faculty, students, and alumni inviting them to be part of the study. The email will contain a link to Qualtrics, which contains the consent form and the survey. Faculty and students who choose to participate in the survey will answer several open-ended questions about their experience with the social work hybrid program weekend intensive sessions. Once they have answered the questions, they will be thanked and dismissed. So notice first you will say, how are you contacting them? What's going to be in the email? Where are they getting the consent form? Who is going to participate? What are they going to be experiencing? And they always end with they will be thanked and dismissed. The operationalization, I can't say that word, operationalizing, sorry. Describe how you're going to operationalize or manipulate measures. So basically what you're going to do is talk about what instruments are you using. Are you using a stress scale? Are you doing a self-created survey? What is it that you're specifically using to gather data? We used a self-created survey, and we always want to say the self-created survey that asks participants about whatever it is that it gathers. The risks and cost. So could your participant consider information requested to be private or sensitive? If you're asking about ACEs scores or their income or their stress levels or depression or any kind of mental health, you should say yes. It should be, and then you have to tell you why it is. So asking about ACEs score can be considered private or sensitive. However, all information will be gathered confidentially or anonymously to protect the participants. So just say yes, it is private, and we are going to gather information anonymously so that we will protect their privacy. You don't have to explain why it would be sensitive, just say yes, it would be. Will they be encountering stress or psychological stress or anything like that? Usually no, because what the clarifying description is in here where it talks about will it be more stress than encountered in daily life or during a performance of routine physical activity, exercise, or completing a psychological examination or test. So you're asking them to complete a stress survey or an ACEs survey. So it is not any worse than a normal physical or psychological exam. So usually that one is no. If they come back and say yes, answering the ACEs is more stressful, then we can always say we will give them the number to the crisis team if they get stressed. But most of you guys, the answer should be no on that one. Will participants consider any of the materials presented to be offensive, threatening, or degrading? Usually no, unless you are asking them something that is could be very offensive, and you have to say why it might be offensive and what will you do if they become distressed. Number 22, will medical clearance be necessary for participants? We are not asking them to do any kind of strenuous work, so the answer would be no. And when you have this, when you say no, it says move to 23. Obviously, if you say yes, you have to answer the extra questions below. Will you be deceiving your participants? If you are using a two-group design where you have a control group that is going to get a placebo and a treatment group that is going to get the treatment, then you have to say, yes, I am actually going to deceive them, and then you have to have a debriefing script. I do not believe anybody in this class is going to use any kind of deception, so the answer here would be no. You ask about what level of risk will your participants potentially face if involved in your study. No anticipated risk. If you're asking truly invasive questions, you might say minimal risk, and then you have to answer 25A below. What approach will you use to minimize risk? If you feel like you are asking about suicide or things that could trigger a client, and it could be minimal risk, you want to then put in here that they will be given the telephone number to the National Crisis Line, or so that they can reach out and get some help if they need it. You'll also want to say that you are collecting all data anonymously so that you can protect the participants. What data will you be collecting? You're not collecting tissue or blood. You're collecting responses or observations, thoughts, feelings, opinions, and behaviors. I don't believe anybody is collecting anything else. If you are collecting data that has already been is in a database, you can click Other and then type in what type of information you're gathering. So this one is where students get confused. Is it anonymous or is it confidential? If you are meeting with the person and you know who is filling out your application, it becomes confidential. But if you are sending out a Qualtrics link, it is anonymous. If you are sending out a Qualtrics link, doing a pre-test and a post-test, you are going to say, I'm doing anonymous with a code. Qualtrics will then give you a code if you're doing with Qualtrics. How will the code be generated? Type in here, Qualtrics has a software that actually does that for you. How long will you have the code matched before it is destroyed? You would just say that it is going to be destroyed at the end of the study. If you are collecting confidential, so let's say that I'm going to use UGM again. If you're at UGM and you're handing out the studies, you know who's taking the study. You're not asking them to put their name on it. If you are collecting with names, if you're doing a pre-test, post-test with names, you have to say, how am I doing it? Am I going to get removing information so that nobody else has it? How are you going to protect your participant's identity? I would say most 99% of everybody usually has anonymous on this, because that is the way we protect our participants the best. Do not click on anonymous and confidential. Only pick one. Location of the data. Where are you going to keep your data? Is it on a password protected computer? Is it going to be in our classroom want to practice? Because you're going to bring it to the classroom, so you can say our classroom and a password, or your office or somewhere, wherever it's keeping it, and then a password protected computer. Who will have access to the data? So this is the raw data. Some students get confused here because they say, oh, the people on my agency have access to the data. They do not. Only the researchers have access to the raw data, and me, the advisor. I will see that, but that is it. Nobody else gets access to the raw data. The agency can have access to the data after the fact, after we have processed it and the written report is done. Then they can see the results, but not the raw data. How long will the data be kept? If it's anonymous, it can be kept indefinitely. So all you can say that the data is anonymous and will be kept indefinitely. If it's confidential, it must be kept less than 3 years or greater than. Usually it's destroyed after about 3 years if it's confidential. So will participants be rewarded or compensated for their participation? That would be a no, because most of our populations are vulnerable, and if you offer them a $5 gift card or anything like that to participate, they all of a sudden become non-voluntary participants. So say absolutely nope. My participants will all be volunteers. Will the participants' participation in a specific experiment or study be made a part of their record, available to his or her supervisor, teacher, employee? That would be a no. We are not going to put anything in anybody's files. Your agency might say, oh, but I have the ACEs scores of these people in my file already. If you're collecting ACEs scores, that yours does not go in anybody's file. It goes only to the research project. So that would be no, we are not giving it to anybody's files. The expected cost to participants, that will be their time. So the cost of the participants will be approximately 10 to 15 minutes of their time to complete the survey. If you're doing a mindfulness-based stress reduction group, as I know one of you guys are, and you're doing a pre-test and a post-test, the participants will they will complete a pre-test and a post-test that will take approximately 10 to 15 minutes each. They will also be involved in, or they'll participate in a weekly mindfulness-based stress reduction program for 6 weeks at an hour each. So tell them how much time it's going to be for them to participate. I'm going to stop here and continue with the next one in a bit.